mentally wealthy, spiritually conscious. I'm fresh out of honors. I'm ballin' and ballin'. I play with the hundreds. Love is the new money. That's my favorite saying. Spark up, burn sage. Critical kill hate. Love is the new way. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies. Comes with the hardest. Play catch with the hundreds. Love is the new money. I'm just chillin' with the homies. Comes with the hardest.
It always makes me so happy. Every single time I step on stage, I feel so much love for everybody in this room. And there's just so much that I want to say. First of all, I just want to tell you how grateful I am. It's been one hell of a year, if anybody's been following my career. It's a crazy thing when you step outside of yourself and just take a look at what's going on right now in this country. We put that video together because when I thought about Blexit, I just remembered a time, I always say it's a 90s vibe, where it didn't feel like America was like this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, does anybody, when I was up, I never felt that white people were out to get me, or black people, we had to stay in different cliques. Like, I just remembered feeling like it was American. I had like a Disney World sort of perspective when I was growing up. The families were together. It was all about families. And I was asking myself, when I started the Blexit movement, what happened to the black family? When I was growing up, I used to watch the Huxtables, the Jeffersons, the Winslows especially. I loved Family Matters, Steve Urkel, and that was all about how important family was. It set our goals in a different way. I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't want to be like Mike. I never had aspirations to be like LeBron James. I wanted to live like the Huxtables lived. Look at TV, thank you, right? Applaud for them, right? Look at TV now. Look at black TV now. What is a positive black TV show where the families are together? There are none. Right now we have Love and Hip Hop. People that are aspiring to make it in the hip hop industry, people that want to be rappers, people that have baby daddies. That is, they're actually, via the media, resetting our goals. The majority of people want to be like LeBron James. This is why it's very easy for the media, they understand they can control minds, to give a Beto cap to LeBron, to give a hashtag I'm with her shirt to Beyonce, and that means what? We're all supposed to do whatever they say? Culture has taken over. People aren't even thinking anymore. It's all about culture now. And it's harming us, it's hurting all of us, especially America in this moment, because you turn on CNN and they tell you that white people, you two shouldn't even be sitting together right now. He wants to kill you, according to CNN, right? Right? Exactly. That white people and black people cannot come together. Hispanic people should be afraid. Everybody should be afraid because the evil white man is out to get us. This is not the America that I grew up in. America is not a racist country. Our media is making us think it is.
That's right. Yeah.
So why Richmond? Why are we in Virginia? I know, maybe because we have this wonderful governor. I hope you hear that. I hope you hear that, Ralph. I'm going to call him Ralph because I have no respect for him. I have no respect for him whatsoever. And what I don't respect is that he thinks black people are so stupid that he couldn't dignify something with the proper response. Right?
Yeah.
So I said, unfortunately, Virginia has sort of become the nation's capital for Democrat hypocrisy. What's happening here right now, this does not wake you up to the fact that Democrats do not care about racism. Could you imagine, everyone just close your eyes and imagine if a conservative, if Donald Trump's yearbook came out.
Oh boy.
And he was pictured in a KKK hood in blackface. Could you just imagine? This man stands on the stage and he says, respectfully to Black America, Donald Trump says, what do you have to lose, right? That was a really good question.
Yeah.
And they call him a racist. He's done. He's a racist, right? He said, you can't, oh my gosh, he's disrespecting you, blah, 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 because he asked you a question that we should have been asking ourselves a very long time ago, right? Ralph Northam has a yearbook. He's wearing a KKK hood. I don't know who was who in the picture because they were covered. He got blackface. He doesn't dignify it with a response. And this is all in the same couple of weeks that they're promoting not abortions at 9 months. This is, guys, this is Satan to me. Like this, we're now at level Satan against that part. So I want to talk a little bit about abortion because it's something that I'm really passionate about having this discussion, and Americans need to have this discussion with one another because what we're talking about right here is crazy. I can't even believe this is an actual discussion in America. I cannot believe that Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, lit up the city to celebrate the fact that you could abort a child at 9 months because it took you 9 months to decide you didn't want the child, right? Who is harmed? It is sick. You're absolutely right. Who is harmed the most by abortion policies?
Blacks.
That's exactly right, right? So we have tons of white conservatives here, and I've done a lot of speaking in front of groups, and they say, how do we talk to the Black community? We've been smeared as racist for so long. They're scared to even knock on our doors. They're scared to say they're Republican. They're scared to say they're conservative because they've been lied on and smeared. And I said, you want to know what would be a great topic to start with? Abortion.
Yeah.
Start talking about abortion because 6% of the population, Black females, account for almost 40% of all the abortions performed. That's absurd because they put the clinics in our neighborhood. They brainwash our schools. They tell us not to keep our children. And what is the result? We've had 18 million Black babies aborted since 1973. For those of you that don't know, the Black population growth has stagnated. We're not growing. Latino population is going up. The white population is going up. The Black population is stagnating. And you know what that means? It means that the Democrats are looking for a new voter bloc because we're going to be irrelevant. And who's that new voter bloc?
Illegals.
Open borders, everyone. They want open borders because they want illegals to replace Black people in this country. When someone tells me to go defend illegals because of diversity, I go, are you crazy? That's like asking me to dig my own grave and then you're going to kick me inside of it. Absolutely not.
No way, Jose.
So I talked to the Black community, I talked to the Latino community being wrongly conflated with illegals. Latino Americans are some of the hardest working people in this country.
Yeah.
Disrespecting Latinos and telling them, oh, you have to be concerned because your brothers and sisters are at the border. No, they did their work. The people that are in here, some of them waited 10 years and paid an insane amount of money to become legal citizens. And now they're just open the borders, let everybody else in. Here's something else you need to know. When the argument they present to you, and this is the argument they will always tell you, it's diversity. Now it's diversity. This is all about diversity. We should be welcoming. America is a country that's built off of the back of immigrants. Yeah, legal immigrants, okay? Legal immigrants. But I want to give you something to go back to them with. When you're talking about the fact that over 50% of all of the immigrants that come into this country are coming from the border, the Mexican border, that's not diversity. That's making America Mexico. A merit-based system, on the other hand, only 2% are coming from Africa. How about we get some Africans in on a merit-based system if we're looking for diversity?
That's right.
Some Africans that live in countries and they aspire to be doctors and lawyers and to have opportunities, okay? There are tons of hardworking people all over the world. Don't tell me that we have to open our borders and let illegals in because Donald Trump is right. They are not sending us their best people. What country in their right mind would send you their best people? I mean, that's just not even smart, right? It's actually not a good policy. These are the conversations we have to start having, and these are the conversations that they don't want us to have. If you guys have read articles about me, I have been smeared as everything. I've been called anti-Black, I've been called racist, I've been called a white supremacist, I've been called a Nazi, I've been called a Hitler sympathizer, I think was the most recent one. Why? What is it that I'm actually doing? I actually think I might be the most pro-Black person in America right now. Right?
Preach.
Because I believe that Blacks and Latinos and every single American in this country can do it without government handouts. They want to tell us that we should be scared of Donald Trump. There's not been a single policy. Then ask him the question, what policy has he put in place that has negatively impacted Black America? No one seems to be able to answer the question. They immediately start fumbling. They go, oh, what about the tape from 25 years ago where he said that groupies let you grab them by the blank? Are you kidding me? I love this, by the way, when Black Americans try this with me. I was at an HBCU and they asked me that. How could you support a president? I go, what's on your iPod right now? Let me hear your music. You're offended by that? I heard an entire Beyonce and Jay-Z album. Was Beyonce the whole album about groupies trying to go after Jay-Z? Do you think Beyonce is disqualified to be the president one day? Oh no, not Queen Bey, not Queen Bey. That's what it's about. So if you understand effectively how they've been able to do this in the minority community, all in America, it starts with this. First and foremost, there are 3 verticals that they tapped into. The first one is family. If you want to destroy an entire neighborhood, all you have to do is remove the father from the home.
Yeah.
A father is a pillar of the family. A father is the pillar. Everything starts with the father, the patriarch of the family. They instill the values. They instill respect. Okay? So when LBJ put into place, when LBJ decided his Great Society Act was going to implement welfare policies, what did they do? They started encouraging the breakdown of the family. The policies actually encourage father absence because they say to the woman, we'll give you more money if the father doesn't live in the home. So what has that led to? A 23% single motherhood rate is what we had in the 1960s ahead of this. Today we have a whopping 74% single motherhood in my community. Nobody's ever talking about that though. You can't find this on CNN. You can't find these so-called Black leaders talking about that. That is the number one issue that is facing the Black community, father absence. And do you want to know what's a threat to it? Radical feminism.
Yeah.
They want women to be men and men to be women and everyone has to be accepting and bathroom science, nobody knows where it is. All of that is a mask to break down the families in this country. And when you say that, they say, you're not tolerant. You're right, I'm not tolerant of you trying to remove men from this society. I'm not tolerant of a stupid Gillette razor commercial, okay, that say boys should not be boys. Yes, they should be boys. Be men. Stand up and be the pillars of this society.
Yeah.
You guys are going to get me in a lot of trouble tonight. I talk about that all the time because my idol, the person that I owe all of this to is my grandfather. You guys have probably seen my PragerU video when I talk about what he lived through. My grandfather is the ultimate man. I mean, he is the patriarch of our family. I'm still scared of my grandfather. I take my elbows off the table when I eat. Yes, sir, Daddy. Yes, sir, you know. And just a little bit about him is he started his life on a sharecropping farm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. One of 12 brothers and sisters. His first job he had when he was 5, and this was in the segregated South. And his job was to wake up before the sun came up because in North Carolina, it would get too hot if we didn't get up before the sun. He would lay out tobacco to dry. My grandfather, I moved into his home when I was about 11 years old, and he had a lot of values. And let me tell you something, it's so strange. My grandfather never in my entire life told me that I couldn't do something because of the color of my skin. And he's never accused people of being racist. He never said that this is a racist society. This is a man who actually lived through real racism. And now today, I go to these HBCUs and these colleges, and I have Black Lives Matter, whiny brats who haven't lived through anything. Anything at all.
Preach that truth.
Tell me that they can't, society is against them. No, society convinced you can't. You need to turn off the TV. Because if Granddad could do it, if he could start his life on a sharecropping farm, and today my grandfather is retired, and he moved back down south and he purchased the sharecropping farm. He now owns it.
Yeah.
That is the American dream. That any person who wants to work hard in this country can make something out of themselves. You have these socialists now. It should just give out. Did I read the Green New Deal right? Was there a line that said, give money to people who are unwilling to work?
You read it right.
My cat is unwilling to work. I mean, it's just the most absurd thing in the entire world because that's what they want. They're encouraging laziness. They don't want you to make it. They want to zap everything we have, and they want to give full power to the government. That is all it is. Socialism, when somebody tells you about socialism, they are telling you to give up all of your freedom from your right to start from point A and get to point Z. From the bottom to the top. They want to take all of that away. And it is equality, because everybody suffers equally. We'll all be poor. Because we have so many people that are here tonight, they're going to talk to you about different ideas, and that's really what TED conferences, what Blexit conferences are about. It's about starting a TED conference of sorts for Black and Latino Americans and for white Americans to come together and to not be scared to talk to one another about these issues. This first speaker that is coming out is someone that when I was going through my awakening, as I like to call it, when I was starting to realize that something didn't add up. I mean, Donald Trump, when he first came on the escalator, I was like, no, he's a reality TV star, not really, he doesn't ever have the qualifications, right? And then the next day, I woke up and magically everyone was calling him a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a bigot. Like overnight, he became all of that. But I grew up listening to hip hop music where everybody liked Trump, right? Everyone, Mar-a-Lago, sitting poolside, that was the dream. That was my awakening. I looked and I said, there's no way. You think I'm so stupid that you converted this man into a racist overnight? That was my awakening. When I started with that, it was hard because I was a liberal. I did believe Republicans were racist. I did believe that conservatives were a bunch of rich white men who wanted to keep the black man down. And it took a lot of humility to admit I was wrong. I think a lot of people that are still on the left and don't recognize that party anymore just don't have the humility in them to admit they were wrong. You know, they spend so much time calling their friends racists and sexists and bigots, and it's hard to then say, oh, never mind, you know, I had it wrong. But we have to invite them in, because it is hard, and it's a conversation you have to have with yourself first and foremost. And one of the very first books that I read when I started to sort of dab into conservative principles was Dinesh D'Souza's The Big Lie.
Yeah.
He has done one of the most wonderful jobs of exposing who the Democrats are. They are the party of the KKK. They are the party of the Jim Crow. The problem is that they've taken over our education system and we're actively learning American history wrong. They're revising American history. And if you don't pursue outside authors like Dinesh D'Souza, if you don't pursue these people like Dr. Thomas Sowell, you may never learn the truth.
Thomas Sowell, the GOAT. Yeah.
So, without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage Dinesh D'Souza.
America's favorite legal immigrant.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and I'm delighted to be standing shoulder to shoulder with Candace on what I think is a truly historic development. The moral power of the Democratic Party comes from its virtually unanimous support on the part of racial minorities. If minorities desert the party, there is no Democratic Party.
That's right.
It's done. So the heresy that Candace is a part of, that you're a part of, is the heresy of breaking this kind of monopoly that the Democrats claim not only on the allegiance of voters, but on truth itself. On truth itself. Now we've heard a lot since Trump about fake news. I want to say a few words about fake scholarship and fake history and fake narratives. Narratives that have been spun to camouflage the truth. Notice these activists who have been running around the South knocking down Confederate statues. And I'm going to begin right in the teeth of controversy and try to ask, what is the meaning of what they're doing? What are they trying to show by doing that? What they're really trying to show is that the crime of slavery was a crime not of the Democratic Party, but of the South.
Right.
That's the reason for it. Because very often when they knock down a Confederate statue, it's not even Robert E. Lee. It's some Confederate soldier who was a dirt poor farmer, a laborer, drafted into a cause that he knew nothing about. He didn't own a single slave. So something else is going on. And what's going on is the fact that they're trying to hide the fact that while the secession debate was between the North and the South, the slavery debate was between a pro-slavery Democratic Party in the North and the South and an anti-slavery Republican Party.
Yes, preach the truth. Tell the truth and the devil.
The proof of this comes directly from the mouth of Abraham Lincoln. Because when Lincoln identified what he called the 4 bad guys of slavery, the 4 leading champions of slavery in the country, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, he names them. Roger Taney, who wrote the Dred Scott decision. Now, Roger Taney was from Maryland, and yet Lincoln counts him as a Southerner. And then there's Franklin Pierce, the former president, from New Hampshire, Northern Democrat. And James Buchanan, the sitting president from Pennsylvania, Northern Democrat. And Stephen Douglas, Lincoln's own antagonist, from Illinois, Northern Democrat. So 3 of the 4 that Lincoln thought were the pillars upholding slavery in the United States, Northern Democrats. And yet their statues are untouched. No one pulls those statues down. Typically, when I talk about the Democratic Party's role in slavery on a campus, some professor will stand up and say, Dinesh, this is typically a professor of Romance languages at Harvard College. He goes, Dinesh, your talk is very simplistic. You're pointing the finger of blame in one direction, whereas in fact, there's plenty of blame to go around. Both parties are complicit. Now, it's really important when you hear stuff like this to have the equipment, to have the knowledge to crush it. Because see, while people are entitled to their own opinions, they're not entitled to their own facts. So this is the moment for me to say to the professor, well, in 1860, the year before the Civil War, no Republican owned a slave. Now notice I'm not saying no Republican leader owned a slave. I'm actually saying no Republican in the United States owned a slave. And that means that all the slaves in the whole country, 4 million of them, were owned by Democrats. Now, this is fighting words. I mean, this kind of reminds me of the atheist who read through the Bible from cover to cover and at the end made a single note in the margin, important if true. Important if true. And that applies to my statement. It's important if true. And the beauty of it is it's a scientific statement in that it's totally irrefutable. All you have to do is give me the name of one Republican who owned a slave, and I would have to take it back. I would have to eat my words. But here, as I stand 2 years later since I made this statement, there's not a single valid counterexample that has surfaced. Not one. A few months ago, a guy wrote me from the University of Michigan, a demographer apparently. He goes, Dinesh, I gotcha. Ulysses S. Grant inherited a slave, a solitary slave, mind you, on his wife's side. And I'm like, that was a pretty impressive effort, but I do need to point out that at the time this happened, Ulysses S. Grant was a Democrat. He moved over to the Republican Party later. Now, this is not just about slavery. If you watch my movie Death of a Nation, there is a scene that if you knew nothing about it, you would find really incredible. And that is the senior Nazis from the different departments who are making the Nuremberg laws. These are the laws that make Jews into second-class citizens. The Nazis wanted to do 3 things. They wanted to outlaw intermarriage between Jews and other Germans. They wanted to segregate Jews into ghettos. and they wanted to confiscate Jewish property through state-sponsored segregation. The Nazis are sitting around the table in the scene from the movie, and they say, "We are creating the world's first racist society," and they're very proud of it. And then one of the Nazis kind of raises his hand and he goes, "Actually, I studied in the United States. We are not creating the world's first racist society because the Democratic Party in America has already done that." And the Nazis are like, "Whoa." And the guy goes, you want to outlaw miscegenation? They already do in the Jim Crow South. You want state-sponsored segregation? They got it. And he names the Democratic Party, and for an American student, this is a little bit of a surprise because why? Because we are not told in our textbooks that every segregation law from the 1880s to the 1950s was passed by a Democratic legislature, signed by a Democratic governor, enforced by Democratic officials, and there is no exception to this rule. The Nazis knew it, but our students don't.
Yeah.
So, segregation was from start to finish a Democratic Party machination. In fact, it was aimed at consolidating the Democratic hold on the South. And when you have the Democrat up against the wall, and you explain, wow, your party is not only the party of slavery, not only the party of segregation and Jim Crow, it's also the party of lynching, of racial terrorism, of founding, and then again reviving the Ku Klux Klan, of opposition to the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. That opposition came mainly from the Democratic Party, and yet the Democratic Party has never admitted any of this, it's never apologized for it, it's never paid 1 penny in restitution for it. And when you bring all this up, the only comeback to this is, but yes, Dinesh, we all know that the parties switch sides. The big switch. The big switch.
Big myth.
And the big switch is the linchpin of all this. Why? Because it gives the Democrats a get-out-of-jail-free card. It allows to take all the evil things they did, all the torture, all the murder, and pin it on the very people who are fighting to stop them all the way. So it's a kind of a work of genius if they can pull this off. And in order to pull it off, they have to show one simple thing. And that is that the racist Democrats, the so-called Dixiecrats, became Republicans. Now, I admit, if they could actually show a wave of Dixiecrats moving to the Republican Party, they could then legitimately argue, we might have been the bad guys then, but these are the bad guys now. And the beauty of talking about these kinds of subjects today on the campus is that we're in a position to check. I mean, I am actually being surrounded as we speak by 150 left-wing historians who are all collectively trying to refute me. And all I have going from my side, well, I think it was Winston Churchill who said something like, truth is a very incontrovertible thing. You can malign it, you can deride it, you can scorn it, you can deny it, but at the end of the day, there it is. There it is. And so, so these days we get to whip out our phone and type in the word Dixiecrat, and we get all the people who joined the Dixiecrat Party or who voted against the Civil Rights Act of '64, the Voting Rights Act of '65. That's a list of about 150 people. And in my movie, boom, I put them all up on the screen with their photos. And then we say, how many of those guys moved to the Republican Party? Let's count. In the House of Representatives, one guy. Albert Watson. In the Senate, one guy. Strom Thurmond. And all the other Dixiecrats lived and stayed and died in the Democratic Party, and there are buildings in Washington, D.C. right now named after them.
Yep.
So the big switch never happened. Never happened. Now, I'm coming back a little bit later to answer questions, but I want to say a word in conclusion. I've just got a limited time. I want to say just a word about what I think is really the core difference between the two parties, because part of what we have to do is spread our message, make the case. I was actually, as part of my penance for my sins against the Obama administration, I was sentenced to teach English to immigrants. And one time, a woman in my class said to me, Dinesh, you're into politics and all that. Can you tell me what's the difference between the two sides, the left and the right? How would you summarize it? And I realized I can't appeal to the American Constitution. She's never heard of it. I can't talk in the normal language of conservatism. I have to actually try to put this in the most basic way possible. And so I said this. I said, basically, as I see it in America, there are two sides, two parties. There is the party of the ladder, and there is the party of the rope.
Uh-oh.
What's the party of the ladder? The party of the ladder believes that America is a kind of ladder, a ladder of opportunity. The government does have a job to hold the ladder. And what that means is to protect our rights, to enforce contracts, to be non-discriminatory. So the government has the job of holding the ladder. It's our job to climb.
That's right. Climb the ladder. 1,000.
Now, how far you get on the ladder is going to depend on you and your creativity and your hard work, and it's going to depend a little bit on luck. But at the end of the day, most of it is going to be earned achievement. You'll get someplace on the ladder and you'll be able to look down and say, I did this. I played this deck of cards that I was dealt, and I was able to achieve this in life. But there's another approach, and on the first glance, it's actually more appealing. And I would call it the politics of the rope. The politics of the rope works kind of like this. Down here you have all the immigrants and minorities. And then there's a kind of a tall building. And you have a group of guys, let's call them Democrats, on top of the building. And they say, worry not, you people down there. We're going to be sending down a rope for you. And your job is really easy. You just have to hold the rope. So you can see on the first glance, it's kind of easy, right? Climbing a ladder requires climbing. Holding a rope just requires holding on. So you go, I'll go for the rope. But as you go for the rope, it suddenly begins to dawn on you, if you think about it, that you are very dependent on the people who are supposed to pull you up. In fact, if they let go, down you go. So not only do you
That
have
was a great
this
analogy.
dependency, but then you notice a second and even more dismaying fact. You notice that of all the other people who have gone for the rope before you, not a whole lot of them, maybe none, ever seem to get to the top. The Democrats appear to pull and then hold. They hold. And when they hold, you're kind of caught in the middle. You're in no man's land. You're too far from the ground to let go, because you might crash, and yet no one's pulling you up. You're stuck.
You're stuck, yep.
And then it crosses your mind, maybe they like me that way. Maybe they want me stuck, because as long as I'm stuck, I'm totally dependent on them. Because in return for the meager crumbs that they're offering me, they want something that is free for me to give, but I don't have to give it. And that's my vote. And so their argument is, and the only price that you pay for becoming a person of the rope, I think at the end of the day, is not only dependency, but a certain kind of degradation of your soul. Because your achievements in life no longer depend on your efforts. You don't have that pride in saying, I did it. And I think that ultimately this is a very empowering, exhilarating message that we have to share. We've got to convince people that they should be people of the ladder, but not just preach to them. We've got to show them the ladders. We've got to show them that there are ladders, and in some cases we may even have to show them how to climb a ladder. But if we do that, then our side can't lose. The truth is on our side, and if we can combine that with a message of hope and prosperity, I think we will begin to see that day that I think Reagan, in a way, just dreamed about. A day in which all Americans are achieving the American dream. A day that Reagan called Morning in America. Thank you very much.
It's so clear, and you understand it, and then you start to wonder how you ever believed the other side, how you ever believed it, because the proof is the proof, the truth is the truth. There's something else I want to talk to you about because we're going to be going into the 2020 election and elections beyond that. That's always sort of a critique on the right and conservatives. Is I think that we need to be running stronger candidates, right?
Yeah.
I know so many minorities, and you're going to see a lot of them on the stage today, and I'm like, why aren't you in Senate? Why aren't you in the House? You're charismatic, you're smart, I appreciate everything that you're saying. Why aren't we running these candidates? And we have to make that effort. We have to figure out how to mobilize and run strong minority candidates on the right with conservative values. Because you know what it does immediately? It defeats the idea that they can play the race card. You can't play the race card. If Andrew Gillum was running against he played the race card because Ron DeSantis said monkeying around, right? Yo, it's racist. That's not racist. My favorite book growing up was No More Monkeys Jumping on the Bed. Okay. The word monkey doesn't offend me. I'm sorry. My mom used to call us little monkeys when we were kids. Like, I don't know, we're so offended. Everybody knows what monkeying around means. It has nothing to do with black people, okay? So when I think about how we win, thank you, I don't know about the monkey, I'm really sorry. But I think about how we're going to win, we have to start engaging candidates that are in the minority community, that are charismatic, and this next speaker is such a perfect person to be here in Richmond, Virginia, because he's run, and he's going to talk to you about some of the issues that are happening here. They're happening here in Virginia. He actually ran against Governor Ralph Northam. It's quite amazing, right? So he's the president of an organization called Stand. Please welcome to the stage Bishop Jackson.
Keep the view.
Thank you.
Let it go.
Thank you. Or otherwise known as the person who Ralph Northam refused to shake my hand.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, since we're so close to the Capitol, let's send a message to Governor Ralph Northam. First of all, I want him to know once again, I don't want to shake his hand. Because anybody who thinks it's okay to kill a baby, even after it has escaped from its mother's womb alive, I'm not interested in shaking his hand. In fact, there's only one thing, well, two things maybe, I'd like Ralph Northam to do with that hand. First of all, he can take that hand and resign from the governorship.
Yeah.
He can take that hand and wave goodbye. So since we're so close, let's send a message to him that will be heard all across the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're going to say together, Governor Northam, it's time to resign. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Governor Northam, it's time to resign. I tapped him, he wouldn't even acknowledge me and shake my hand. And then he wants to point the finger at Ed Gillespie and call him a racist. And now we find out that he's the one running around in a Ku Klux Klan uniform and blackface. You know, what hypocrisy. These liberals really think that they have a free pass to do and say whatever they want because they are liberals, when in fact they are the most condescending, paternalistic, racist individuals in this country because they think they own black people, they think they own Latino people, and it's time to tell them, you don't own us, we are our own people, we will chop the cost of our own lives. We will think for ourselves, we will work for ourselves, we will speak for ourselves. Now, I see young faces, I see Candace Owens and the young people who have come out. I was with her last night, she had some young people in Williamsburg. I want to tell you young people something. Black, Latino, white, Asian, doesn't matter. I want to tell you something. Don't believe the socialist lie that you've got to have government and you've got to have a bunch of liberals or you can't make it in America. You are gifted, you are talented, you are capable, you have intellect, and you can do anything you want to do because this is the greatest nation on the face of the earth for education. justify racism. And yet, we have a governor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia who supports infanticide when 37% of the babies aborted in the United States of America are aborted to black women.
That's right.
In New York City, it's 50%. There is a genocide going on against the black community. Margaret Sanger was a vicious racist who consorted with the Ku Klux Klan, who sympathized with Adolf Hitler, and had an idea that black people didn't deserve to live, neither did what she called feeble-minded or the weeds that needed to be pulled up. And yet, she and that vicious organization, as far as I'm concerned, they are the most effective racists that have ever existed on the face of the earth. They make the Ku Klux Klan look like child's play because they haven't killed thousands. They've killed millions of black babies. Millions. Well, I'm telling you all, it's time, and I really believe this was a divine appointment, it's time to pull the cover off of these folks who think it's okay to kill babies and tell Americans we don't need to put them in power, because if you won't protect an innocent child, don't tell me you're going to protect us.
Right, yeah. Preach it.
And so I just want you all to understand, and look, it does my heart so good to talk to young people in particular, because we are hearing that 48% of young people believe that socialism is the answer. Socialism that has killed millions of people. Socialism that has starved people. Socialism that has thrown Venezuela into absolute chaos today. And we've got a presidential candidate named Bernie Sanders who went to the Soviet Union and bragged about how much more they do for their people than we do for ours. And we're being told that we ought to buy into this Marxist, socialist, communist ideology. And I want you all to know something about me. I raised my hand in the United States Marine Corps in August of 1974.
Yeah.
I took an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America to preserve, protect, and defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And right now, frankly, we've got some domestic enemies, and I want you all to know that oath never had an expiration date. And for those who want to turn us into a socialist country, not on our watch. America will remain the land of the free because we are the home of the brave. And don't you dare let anybody tell you by calling you a racist or calling you a bigot or calling you a hater. I don't care what they call me. I'm going to stand up for America until I breathe my final breath. I will never give up. I will never give in. This is my country. I love the United States of America. So keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. Because I have to believe that in the heart of every American, there beats a rhythm of patriotism. Yeah. That they know that we do things here that nobody else has ever done. Right. I know you all are looking at me as a speaker right now, and I've been a candidate for office, but I want you to see something different. I want you to see a foster kid who was born into a broken family and shipped around to foster homes until 18 months old, and then stayed in a foster home until I was 10 years old. I was a street kid. I was a gang member. I was a petty thief. I was doing all the wrong things. And then something wonderful happened in my life. My father stepped back into my life at the age of 10 years old. Turned my life around. I was failing the 5th grade because I would barely go. I was busy hanging with my gang. And I almost failed out in 5th grade. I went from being an F student in 5th grade to being an A student in 6th grade. Wow. And folks, I have to tell you, it wasn't because of some liberal program. It wasn't because of some government program. It wasn't because of midnight basketball. It was because I had a dad who said to me, son, this is the United States of America. You can make of yourself anything you want to be. And I expect you to do something with your life. And I'm going to be the enforcer to make sure that you do it.
Yeah. He's really preaching. He really is. He's
You
preaching.
want to know why I love this country? Because I know in most nations of the world, you're born into that circumstance, that's where you stay. But not in America. And so I want you all to know that we got a fight on our hands, but we're going to win. We're going to win. Because we're on the right side of this thing. That's why we're going to win. We're going to win because our founding fathers, and in spite of all the nasty things that are said about them, our founding fathers bequeathed us a nation unlike any that's ever existed on the face of the earth. When they penned the majestic words, we hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That was a promise to every single one of us, regardless of color. Even though everybody didn't understand that, you and I have inherited that promise, and that's what makes it possible for us to go to the heights to which our talents and gifts and abilities will take us. That's why a Candace Owens is possible. That's why an E.W. Jackson is possible. That's why you can make something of your life, because of the promise that our founding fathers bequeathed us, and we're not going to let anyone take that away. We're going to make sure that the posterity that follows us is given a nation of freedom and hope and opportunity and the ability to fulfill their God-given dreams. Because this is our vision, and we're not going to give it up for anybody. Not for Bernie Sanders, not for Pocahontas, not for any of these folks. We are, and always will be, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And let's fight for that and commit to fight for that principle until we breathe our final breath, because that flag, that national anthem, that Constitution, this United States of America is worth standing up and fighting for. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America.
He just took us all to church. All of us just went to church on this Sunday. Wow. I think backstage just going, amen, amen. Wow. We do. We bleed red, white, and blue. I mean, wow. Well, I have to support. I gotta get him running again. We gotta support him hardcore, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna convince his wife. She's backstage. She told me he can't, but I'll get her there. I'll get her there. All right, so this next speaker, he and I met when I first launched my YouTube channel. I was being attacked by the left and the right, actually. They didn't know who I was, where I came from, and it was really hard for me to sort of state my claim and say, look, I know I don't know everything, but I know that I just feel in my heart and soul that I'm being lied to. And I met another YouTuber who stayed out of the drama and just sort of watched things, and then I pinged him over Twitter, and he was a black police officer.
Potato, my brother.
We all know during the 2016 election, every single election cycle, they pick which issue they are going to bring to the media that is supposed to make black people fearful and emotional and make sure that we don't vote rationally. They change the issue every election cycle. 2016, it was police brutality, right? This coming election cycle, I think it's ICE. I think they're going to go after ICE agents. Is that the new thing, right? Like ICE people are ISIS, they're calling them. So they pick who they're going to get black people emotional over. We're supposed to go, oh, we're scared, so we'll just vote for you. In 2016, what happened with police officers actually discussing, I'm not going to talk too much about it because this is Brandon Tatum's space. But be mindful, is what I want to say to everyone in this room. Be mindful. When you feel like something is being presented to you back to back over and over again, before you get emotional, stop and ask yourself why people are showing you this, right? Why are they showing me these images every single night on CNN of black people dying? Why are they showing it to me? What do they want me to feel? What do they want me to do after I feel that way? Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the stage former police officer of Arizona, Brandon Tatum.
Yeah.
such a great opportunity for us. These messages are something that we need to hear, that we need to internalize. This is our time to shine in America. And my journey started from a very humble beginning. I grew up in a diverse neighborhood. And I can say diversity of thoughts, diversity of action, maybe not diversity of color. And it was very trying for me. But it built me to be who I am today. I'm gonna say this. God has had a tremendous part in making me who I am.
Tell it.
And I know I'm here to talk about policing, and I'm gonna get to that, but I wanna focus first on God. Because I believe that the black community, and a lot of communities around the country, have lost track of our faithfulness and understanding of the one true God. And the reason why I want to show God some love is because I used to walk around Fort Worth, Texas, with my pants sagging, gold teeth in my mouth. Y'all probably don't believe me, but it happened. Some of y'all know. Gold teeth in my mouth. I got Young Savage tattooed across my stomach. I got tats on my forearm. I had a bad attitude. Nobody could tell me nothing or we'll fight. But it took the power of God to deliver me. It took the drawing from God to take me to church. And when I got to church, God showed himself to me. And I was saved. I was baptized in Jesus' name. I was filled with God's Spirit. And you know what that did for me? That changed my perception and how I looked at everybody else. Because I grew up in a neighborhood where we felt like white people didn't like us. I'm keeping it 100. We felt like white people didn't like us. Everybody around me was black. Everything that we thought about came from a black perspective. And I went to college and it started to break up some of that ground in me of feeling that level of hatred. But when God touched me, I started to look at people as everyone in this building and everyone that I see as being God's children. And that helped me go on the path of understanding our purpose together. It helped me understand slavery and understand all of the things that happen in this country that we have been working hard together to accomplish. I don't believe in a pro-black agenda, a pro-white agenda. I believe in a pro-American agenda and a God's children agenda. And I'll say this, and I'm going to throw this out here, you don't get to believe the child. It's better with me. I do not believe in the concept of white privilege. And let me tell you what I do believe in. I believe in the concept of Christ's privilege. And I'm going to tell you this. Not one person that walks in and out this door that gets elected to president, not one person can control my destiny but God. Not one person. So I encourage young brothers all the time when I talk to them, I encourage them. Don't let these people lie to you. Don't let people be faking you. What happened to us being strong? What happened to us holding up the mantle? This is what my dad told me. Listen, if I go apply for a job and they don't hire me, I'm going to apply for every job on the block. And I tell you what, when I get the job, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to build the business and I'm going to put the other business out of commission. That's how you operate. I came from a background of a strong father. I had my dad in my life. My mom and daddy broke up, but my daddy was there. He was there with that belt too. But he was there. My dad wouldn't let me make excuses.
No.
What do you mean? What do you mean you're late to school? You better go earlier. What do you mean you had 2 flat tires? You better leave earlier and bring some flats with you. But that's the power of male influence in our community. And don't get me wrong, my mama was great. We need our mamas. But young men in our country are seeking love and a connection with the man. And these young brothers need their fathers. I would not be here without my dad. I would not be here without, and my father didn't have to tell me a lot of stuff. I saw who he was. I saw what he represented. On a day-to-day basis, it gave me an example of how to be a man, how to be strong. My father don't make excuses. He started on the fire department when he was 18 years old. 31 years retired. I remember when he first started, he used to always tell me this. He said, Brandon, there was some racial tension on the department. Black folks would stick together, white folks would be in their own group. And he said, but I always treated people fair. And when they would come at me and they would treat me unfairly, I would, in my mind, he said he would never disrespect people. He said, I made it up in my mind that I'm gonna work hard. And those people who talk and treat me that way will be working for me one day. And if God is my witness, my dad made it to the top. He retired as a battalion chief, and now he's the chief of an entire fire department out there in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, let's get to police brutality because this is my spot. This is my sweet spot here. Because I was a police officer. And how I became a police officer is because I needed to step up because I had a young child. I needed to step up as a man because football wasn't working out for me. And I said, I'm going to do what it takes to make a solid foundation for my child. And I had never thought about being a police officer. But I applied for everything in the city of Tucson. And I said, my God, you're going to help me get me a job, and we're going to work from there. And the funny story is, me and my son's mom, we had an argument the night before this phone call. She was talking on the phone, I don't know what we were arguing about. I wake up the next day and I get a phone call from the Tucson Police Department. And I'm like, she done called the police on me. She's trying to send the boy to jail. But, so I answered the phone, I said, hello? You know, they said, this is the Tucson Police Department. I'm like, how can I help you? They said, Mr. Tatum, you applied for the job. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I can help you. But what I did was I said, I have to find out, how am I going to do this? I've never even known a police officer. I did a ride-along, which I encourage anybody in here to do a ride-along. I did a ride-along with Officer Sean Payne. For the first time in my life, and this is the honest to God truth, for the first time in my life, I saw a hero. I used to think those football players were heroes. Y'all can get that around the car. Nothing against athletes. They work hard. I was an athlete myself. But I saw a man go from changing a flat tire, it was an elderly lady, she had to get a flat tire changed, to going lights and sirens, 80 miles per hour down the roadway. Literally, we almost crashed twice because people don't know how to move to the right. So if you see the sirens, move to the right, don't look, don't turn around, don't text, move to the right. And we were going through the lights, we were flying. When we got to the location, they kicked the door in, and then once they went in, they let me kind of go in behind them. And I saw a kid in the back room cutting his wrist. He was cutting his wrist, I could see him. And Sean Payne saved that kid. He saved that kid's life. And I remember getting back in the car because he had been talking to me about my family before we went on the call. Just like that, we were on that call. And we get back in the car, and he said, Brandon, what were you saying about your mama? And I was like, what mama? And I couldn't believe it. And I said, hey, you do this every day? And y'all mind me, I was on the half shift. I was on the half a day. I said, you do this every day? Oh yeah, I do this every single day. And from that point on, I said, God, I gotta do this. This is a call for me. I need to save and represent my community. And that's what I did. With my life, I put all of my dreams aside. I put my son, everything, I put it all aside when I put the uniform on. I was willing to go out and die for people in the community. I was willing to die. And I'll say this. This is why this touched me so much. It's because I hate the way they're painting the picture of law enforcement in America. It is disgraceful. Because the only element, and I know this firsthand, I went to the car. I go to my mom and them house when they get burglarized. I go pick up the child off the ground and put them in the body bag when they got shot to death. I remember the effort and energy we put into these communities. And so in the hood, in these neighborhoods, run by all these Democrats, destroying the neighborhoods, who is there to protect when nobody else will? Who is there to be brave when nobody else will? When nobody want to snitch? You feel me? When nobody want to snitch, they don't want to cooperate, they killing each other every day. The men and women who put on their uniform and still go do that every single day, even if facing them going to prison for something that they didn't even do wrong, getting ridiculed, fired, they still go out and work. And I can't stand when they lie to us. And this is what the effect becomes. When they tell a young brother that you should be afraid of police walking out the door. They say if you walk down the street, they're going to just shoot you up for no reason.
Yeah.
If they create that fear, they built the wedge that they can market, that they can continue to cycle through so they can get you to vote for them. Them young brothers who are afraid of police, do you think you're going to cooperate with the police? If you see a crime, you think you're going to talk to the police? No. When the application process come out, you think you're going to apply for the police department? No, you won't. Now, the problem with that is that if you cooperate with police in your community, you can save your community. The people who are selling dope on the corner won't sell dope on the corner no more. The people who are murdered will go to jail for their crimes. Justice will be served for the people in the community. And when you apply for the police department and you become a police officer, you can then adequately serve your own community the best way you know how.
Talk about it.
And we create these environments that are residually destroying the community. And it makes me sick to my stomach. And I just want to deliver to you guys, and I know a lot of y'all support the police department. Y'all support police officers. And we have to consistently support the police officers and support other young people and tell our children the truth about law enforcement. And we have to be educated, understand laws, understand protocol, understand use of force, understand what a police officer can and cannot do to you. Because it is counterproductive if you're on a traffic stop and you don't even know your rights. And you listen to some fool on television telling you, don't roll your window down this much. Now you get created an environment of violence.
Yeah.
And then you get beat up and jumped and you're like, oh, police brutality. No, they're within their rights to remove you from a car. We have to teach our young people that. We have to stand up. And I'm going to give you an example of standing up real quick. Hopefully, y'all can give me an estimate on my time because I'll talk all day. But me and my boy Joe Patrick were in Waffle House. This is about staying strong. And whatever you believe in, me and Joe Patrick in Waffle House, we had our Make America Great Again hats on. And y'all should have seen how they were looking at us. They wanted to eat us alive. And in my mind, I'm like, well, bring it on.
Yeah.
But we were sitting there, and they were staring us down. And what it made me think about was back in the civil rights times, right? When they would go to the counter, they just exercising their rights as American citizens. They have a right to sit down and eat peacefully. We were doing the same thing. But because they disagreed with us, because some of them were ignorant, they gave us these dirty looks. Like they didn't even want it, the server was nice. But the other people act like they didn't want us to be there. I saw brothers looking at us, like, oh, like y'all sell out. I can almost feel them saying that we sell out. But you know why I kept my hat on? Because we had a conversation in the car, like, hey man, you want to take these hats off? I don't know nobody's fitting my food. and then Waffle House, you can see them.
Yeah.
They spit in my food. That's going to be a bad day for Waffle House. But I said, you know what? We have to remain strong.
Yeah.
We have to stand up for what we believe. Because if we don't, they're going to just push us right over. I said, I'm going to go in this place and I'm going to wear my hat because that's my right. I can believe what I want to. And if they don't want me in there, I'll just go somewhere else to eat. But I'm not going to be afraid to stand up for what I believe. And I encourage, as I told you, every single person under the sound of my voice to stand up for what you believe. These liberals want to scare you into cowering. They want to scare you to not come to this event. They want to scare us for not supporting one another. They want to paint you as a racist, you as a coon, a sellout. But we have to remain strong. And I say this in every speech because I feel like God put it on my heart. No matter what happens, no matter what it looks like, in the end of all of this, we're going to win.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but I'm a person of faith. I believe that God has already written the script that at the end of all of this, if we have faith and we stay strong, we will come out victorious because we're on the right side of the situation. God bless y'all. Thank y'all.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brandon.
People said we're able to ask questions and get the speakers. For the next 20 minutes, we're going to allow you to ask questions to me, Brandon, Dinesh, and Bishop Jackson. You guys can come on out, and you guys can just line up here if you want to ask questions before we cut to a little bit of intermission so you guys can get some water. Okay. You guys both have your mics? Your mics? Great, awesome. All right. Got one person with a question. That's it. Any more question? Everyone on?
Yeah.
Thank you, first of all, for coming out and telling this very important message to us today.
Questions?
So I firmly believe that affirmative action has had negative consequences, not only in creating discrimination against aspiring white and Asian Americans, but also devastating consequences for African American community. But I also believe that we need to find ways to still help those who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. So what are some positive alternatives that we as aspiring future politicians and aspiring leaders in our communities, what are some positive alternatives to affirmative action that we can push and create forward to help those who want to come up?
Well, look, I will respond to that really quickly. I went to Harvard Law School, and when I was getting ready to apply, my professors, my reputable professors told me, don't try to get into Harvard Law School because black people don't do well on the LSAT scores. But they had never met my dad. So I don't pay attention to that whatsoever. But it puts affirmative action, the negative, it puts a pall on all black achievement. Because the implication is you couldn't have gotten there unless you got some special help. I mean, forgive me, I'm not bragging on myself. I was told that black people don't pass the bar exam. I took 2 bar exams when I got out of law school. Passed Massachusetts and Pennsylvania at the same time. That's a stigma that needs to be dealt with, and that's what affirmative action is doing. Now, let me tell you how I could have been helped, which would have been a sort of a positive thing that would work for anybody coming from a disadvantaged background. I did extremely well academically in high school, scored well on standardized tests, but I didn't have any guidance. My dad had a 6th grade education, and there was really nobody to say, you ought to be looking at this scholarship opportunity. You ought to be looking at that school. I just basically was navigating my own way. So to the extent that we can reach out to disadvantaged people who come from backgrounds where they don't get exposure to this stuff and give them guidance, I think that's a great thing. But all of the race norming stuff and all of that stuff, that's got to go. That denigrates black people and their achievements.
Just very briefly, if you have 2 applicants to Harvard, a Harvard Law School, and one of them, let's just say, has 99 percentile on the SAT, and the other one is in the 80th percentile. But the second kid grew up in a single-family home, has had disadvantage. There's nothing wrong with a college looking on an individual basis at each applicant, because the distance in your life is not where you start and not where you finish, but the distance you travel in between. So you can assess somebody's merit by looking at their individual circumstances and what they were up against. You don't have to do it based on race, but this would give consideration to people who have had it hard in life and take that into account, what their promise is.
Yes.
Dr. Thomas does a wonderful job debunking affirmative actions. It actually isn't affirmative to black people. What happens, I'm going to try to explain this the best way that I can, is that if you put somebody in a school that they don't belong in, you know, and they're competing with people that are smarter than them, you're not putting them in a place where they can finish at the bottom of their class. Finishing at the bottom of your class in Harvard doesn't look good when you're trying to get a job, but finishing at the top of your class where you actually belong, based on the merit of your intelligence, does look great. So there's no substitution for hard work. Want to take a question on this side?
Yeah.
What's going on? All right. I'm streaming right now. People are asking me a lot of questions, but the main one is, what is the ultimate goal of Blexit? I know there may be many, but if you could pick one thing, one desired outcome from this event, what would it be?
I think it's to wake people up and give them opportunity to be free thinkers. That's it. This is not a rally or trying to motivate you to be a Republican and none of that stuff. I want people to understand what are the values that you see in America. What are the values that you want to be presented in your community? Look at those, evaluate those, educate yourself on those principles, and then use those as factors of voting. Don't just vote blindly. Don't just vote because mom and them told you to vote. Do your research, be educated, so you can make an impact and a true difference.
Amen. Yeah.
Just share with you my favorite quotation from Martin Luther King, and it's not the one about the content of our character. King says, ultimately, every man must write with his own hand the charter of his Emancipation Proclamation. And I think what he means by that is, in a society, we deserve equal rights. We don't deserve anything more than that. And what we make of our freedom, and what we make of our destiny, that ultimately is up to us.
I'll just wrap it up by saying, you know, for me, it was all about getting minority Americans to exit the victim mentality. This is a plague and it's a cancer on our futures. Exit the victim mentality and go into a victor mentality. Life is tough for everyone. Everyone. And it's going to keep on getting tough. But you can work hard and you can really have a piece of the American dream if you understand that. So that's always been my dream for Blexit. Want to go on this side?
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks to all of you for coming. All of you for coming as well. This is what it's all about. I'd like to address, and I guess this is primarily for Dinesh, but I'm interested in hearing what all of you have to say, in regards to the constitutional militia, which I believe the government over the past several decades has intentionally vilified the idea of citizen soldiers or people being prepared to defend the Constitution in this country. And I think it is a critical part of the checks and balances. That's why the founders put it in the Constitution. That's why they put it in the Second Amendment for our right to bear arms. And I just wanted to know your take on the constitutional militia and the role that it plays in our checks and balances, and what we can possibly do within the freedom movement to non-vilify the militia. Because this country would not have been born without the constitutional militia.
Well, Mr. Jackson, I noticed you quickly handed me the mic. Thanks a lot. Well, look, I gotta think about that one, but I'll say a couple things. My wife's Venezuelan. And in Venezuela, what the government did is they knew that they were going to unleash the fury of the state against the citizens. They knew they were going to release large numbers of criminals from the jails and weaponize them against the citizens. So before they did that, they had a 5-year take away everybody's guns campaign. Massive propaganda, turn in your guns, guns are dangerous, people in body bags. They collect, and once that was done, the citizens, you can see them now, they're defenseless against the government. The other thing that's worth noting is that in our own society, it used to be the case that they wanted to arrest you, you'd have 2 guys who come to your door with a folder and they'd ask you to show up the next morning. Now, it's police cars, helicopters above, SWAT teams, guns. So we have weaponized and militarized our own government, and not just against the mafia or ISIS, but against our own citizens. And that's a very worrisome trend. So the Second Amendment, I think, burns bright. as a thin line of defense against some very worrying things that have been happening around the world and in our country.
Well, I will add this, as a lawyer, our Constitution is fundamentally based on the principle of natural law, that there are rights inherent in who we are as human beings, and that the Constitution doesn't give us those rights, it simply secures those rights. It acknowledges that the government is formed to keep those rights secure. One of the most fundamental rights of the human being is the right of self-defense. And that's defense not only against crime, somebody trying to come into your home, that's defense against tyranny, people attempting to take away your freedom inappropriately. And I think that therefore the constitutional militia, the concept at least, is completely and totally within the bounds of the Constitution. Of course, governments don't like it, the state doesn't like it, the deep state doesn't like it, because they want to be able to control people. That's what this whole socialist movement is all about. So I trust that we'll never get to a point where people start saying, well, we need to disarm the American people. We're going to have a little bit of a problem when that happens.
A lot of people, as you know, equate the MAGA hat with the clothing worn by the KKK. It's troublesome, to say the least. I recently saw Black Klansmen, and since we're mostly Virginians here, probably, I wondered if anybody wanted to speak on Charlottesville and maybe what we should know, what the media hasn't really told us. Maybe your feelings on Charlottesville and those types of incidents, or even the film, or that parallel between the MAGA hat and the clip.
Yeah, I want to say first of all that the MAGA hat and Klans's hoodie is absolutely a ridiculous comparison. There is nothing wrong with making America great again. They made up all this propaganda surrounding gay rights. That's their fault. That's their issue. We understand what it means and we support that. And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm just going to say about that. I saw this actually, I think it was a meme on Instagram, and it was so accurate. It said, the MAGA hat is not a symbol of hate. It actually exposes the symbols of hate.
Yeah.
It's like a superpower. Suddenly you can see everybody in the room that's hateful because they come up to you, they try to attack you, and that's really what the MAGA hat means. And it's the most liberating thing in the world, okay? You heard my story. My grandfather, the KKK used to shoot into his home at night. The most liberating thing in the world for me is wearing my MAGA hat through the airport the 6 days a week I travel, letting people know, you can't tell me what to do because of the color of my skin.
Yeah. Preach on it.
I went to Charlottesville and gave a speech on race while I was running for office, and I got into trouble kind of like the president did, because I said, look, there was lawlessness and racism on both sides of that equation.
Yes.
But you can't say that. But I would say this in addition, everybody knows that the Ku Klux Klan and skinheads are a bunch of idiots. Everybody knows that. It's these anti-Trump people who have the cover of the media and the colleges and the universities and a lot of the cultural influences who are given all of this credibility and credence, and Black Lives Matter too.
Yeah.
That are really stoking the racism because they have so much influence. And here again, we're here, and I know you all are here too, to stand up against this mess and put a stop to it.
Here we come to what is really a mortal weakness on our side, which is that the left constructs these narratives, and they truly stage them. That's not a wrong way to put it. The whole Unite the Right rally, even the name is suspicious, was organized by a left-winger, a guy named Jason Kessler, who is a Obama guy and an Occupy Wall Street guy. So think about it. What is the chances of an Obama guy and Occupy Wall Street guy becoming a white supremacist? It doesn't make any sense. This was on the Southern Poverty Law Center website. The media knew about it, but they decided to suppress it, say nothing about it. In my movie Death of a Nation, one of the climactic scenes is I interview the poster boy of white supremacy, Richard Spencer. And it's a very interesting interview. It's not what I would call a lawyer's cross-examination. I just ask him open-ended questions. What do you think of Reagan? Don't like it. Who's your favorite president? Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, boy.
What do you think of the pro-KKK movie, Birth of a Nation? Great movie. It becomes really obvious as you're watching this that this guy is not on the right. He agrees with Trump on nothing, not even immigration. He's on the left. He calls himself a progressive. Now, the left is not going to report this. But we need more journalism on our side.
Yeah.
Bring out these facts.
Hi, I'm Chandler Crook. Some of you may know me, some of you might not.
Chandler.
My question's mostly to Dinesh D'Souza, but before I give it, I'd like to thank him for coming to speak at this event, spitting some great facts, and also for following me on Twitter. Thank you. So, as of late, I've been doing some research on the Republican Party, and I keep seeing this one word, lily white. But it's really hard to find information on this that seems factual and seems real. And so I'm wondering if you could enlighten me and the crowd a bit more about this lily white movement within the Republican Party that was back in the day?
Well,
Sorry, I just want to say before, just for time, because I don't want you guys all to stand there and be disappointed, we're going to take 2 more on that side, so these 2 ladies, and then we're going to take 2 more on this side, up until the MAGA hat. I'm sorry, guys, we're just going to be pressed for time after that. I didn't want to make you guys stand and then be disappointed, because I hate when that happens.
a lot of my work in the last few years has been almost a job that begins with re-educating myself. Because I realized that many of the things that I've believed since the 1980s, that I knew to be true, are not true. I thought fascism was always on the right. In fact, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd say, well, yeah, communism is on the left, and fascism is on the right. And in fact, I thought that in part because in World War II, you see the communists, the Soviets on one side, you see the Nazis on the other. So we have bought into a lot of things. It suddenly dawned on me as I began to dig into this and as I found one spin after another, I realized that virtually everything that we call history is in fact progressive history. It is written by a generation of people who came to power really starting after World War II. And they have written the history books, and they have spun the narrative. Now, I'm not saying they're outright liars, but I'm saying that they do downplay or leave out facts inconvenient to their side. So, when I made the statement earlier about slavery, this fact, I tell you, is a fact, and yet appears in no textbook. It's never been on the History Channel. It's not in Wikipedia. You won't find it anywhere. So, how can something be true and relevant, and yet none of us have heard about it, even though we all read exhaustively on the topic? And the answer is that we have been sold a line, and part of it is we have allowed academia and the media and Hollywood to run away from us. They control the megaphones, so all these terms have to be viewed with suspicion. You've got to go back and say, what are they trying to do here? What is the actual truth behind this? All I'll tell you is that the Republican Party was literally called by Stephen Douglas, Abraham Lincoln's antagonist, the Black Republican Party.
Yeah.
And he meant that as an insult. And he used that term because particularly in the South, virtually 99% of all African Americans were Republicans.
Take this question here.
Hello. Hi. This is more of I want to thank you, Dinesh, because I've been a Republican since 2004. I walked away from it.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for all what you have done, because from right now, from what I see, I'm so happy there's so many people here, because when everything started to kick off back then, it was like being lonely. You didn't have this, and other individuals on the same side. And, from the Tea Party on, your film that came out, Dr. Savage, it was all just talk radio. And I don't understand what you're saying when everything is just, there's history, there's information that's not being revealed, the true depth of the information. And it's so important for everybody to be proactive and to become citizen journalists, to speak out and to be proactive in your communities and to stand up to these politicians, especially now to Governor Northam for, this abortion, 1 minute they're saying, abortion is okay, if it's early, but now they're killing the child, basically killing a full-blown baby. And I just want to thank you, Dinesh, for all the work that you have done. It's been a very hard road.
You, sir.
Hello, my name is Kevin, and this question is a little bit different than what we've had here this evening. So this is going to be geared a little bit more towards Dinesh, but if you have wisdom, you may weigh on this as well.
No, let's let Dinesh take all the heat.
No disrespect, I promise. Last year,
There we
I
go.
was attacked coming from a punk rock show by 20 Antifa, and I had to fight my way for my life. I got stabbed, and I saved my friend's life by stabbing 3 Antifa members back. Last year, I shot them back. Smash the Reds. My question is, I've read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, I've read the Antifa handbook, I've read the IRA handbook. I'm well versed on this subject. How do we stop these people from attacking us? How do we stop them from doxing us, getting them fired from our jobs, even though we're not racist? We're civic nationalists. We care for everyone in this community here, and I'll gladly stand behind everyone in this theater and take a bullet for them. But how do we stop them? How do we stop these so-called shock troops? And I want to hear this.
So I'm going to give you the soft core strategy and the hard core strategy. So the soft core strategy is that we're in general the party of the nice guys, and we tend to. I mean, I'll give an example, which is a little controversial, but worth thinking about. Rutgers University a couple of years ago invited Condoleezza Rice to be the graduation speaker. There was a ruckus on campus. We're never going to let her set foot on the campus. And Condoleezza Rice, who's the lady, says, okay, I'll withdraw. If you don't want me, I don't want him, I'm not going to come. And this is the Republican way, to be nice about it, to be gracious, to show manners. But the problem with this is that the left interprets this the following way. Big win for the left. If Condoleezza Rice is not going to set foot at Rutgers, no conservative, it will ever set foot on Rutgers again. So part of what we've got to realize is we can't send this message of being the party of invertebrates. We got to toughen up. Now, when it came to the attention of Abraham Lincoln in the early years of the war, that the Confederacy was executing black soldiers captured by the Confederates. They wouldn't execute the white soldiers who were kept to be exchanged, but the black soldiers would be shot. And when this came to the attention of Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln issued what to my mind is the harshest executive order to come from the northern side. For every black soldier shot by the Confederacy, 1 Confederate soldier will be executed.
Yes.
Why? Why would a moderate man like Lincoln do something like this? Basically, Lincoln reasoned that the only way to make them stop is to do to them what they're doing to us.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only way.
Yep.
Now, just to close my thought, frankly, I'm not saying that we should go Antifa on liberal speakers.
Why not?
But what I am saying is that enforcing the First Amendment, particularly on the state university campus, is a supreme federal responsibility, and if things got out of hand at Berkeley, in my opinion, and I was Trump, I would send in the National Guard.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us here today. My name is Michaela. I'm currently a senior at the University of Richmond. I'm a proud conservative surrounded by liberals every day of my life.
God bless you. Brave.
But I'm here today wearing my proud member of Basket Deplorable shirt. I think this question is probably geared toward Candace, but I'm curious for everyone else's opinions as well. I was raised by 3 very strong women, and something my grandmother always taught me was that women weren't created to do everything a man can do, women were created to do everything a man can't do. So I guess my question is, what is your response to these radical feminists that we deal with today?
Well, you know, I always get in trouble for talking about feminism because there's 2 things I want to do in life. First is to lead a Black and Hispanic revolution and free minds. The second thing is to destroy radical feminism. I'm so proudly not a feminist, and I'm talking about the interpretation of a third wave feminist. I actually did an interview the other day with the Washington Post, and I said, the closest thing that I've seen to white supremacy in my life is radical feminists, okay?
Yeah.
They believe they can do anything. Christine Blasey Ford, I'm white, privileged, trying, just believe women. Believe women. That's how my ancestors got hung from trees. Yeah. That's how Emmett Till got tarred and burned. Just believing women because their allegations should be believed, okay? So the first thing, that's the first thing that I'll say to you is that I hate feminism. And your grandmother, did you say, or godmother? Absolutely right. There's something symbiotic and biblical in the first chapter of the Bible in Genesis when they talk about creating Eve, right? From his rib, from Adam's rib, she was created. Actually, I was speaking to John Boyd about this, you'll see on my upcoming podcast. He says that in that way, women are actually closer to God. It's a symbiotic nature of a man and a woman that the left is trying to actively destroy. They want to actively destroy it because, as I said, that is the way that they can destroy the family. They can destroy the family by taking out the man, by telling women, you should aspire to work and not take care of your kids. Why wouldn't you want to take care of your children? We birthed those, we should be raising those children. Not culture, not Beyonce, not Jay-Z. The reason why I speak out all the time against radical feminism, I was the very first person that I know, pundit who spoke out against the Me Too movement, and I was roundly condemned by the left and the right. They said, you can't do that, you can't talk about the Me Too movement, it's about rape victims. Why do you think the left did that? Because they didn't want you to talk about it. They wanted to silence you. They wanted to give themselves all power to say, you can't talk about it because now it's rape. There is no topic that is above intellectual debate. Rape included, okay? The Me Too movement is dressed up as something that was meant to give them supreme powers. They could go after and they could take out their political opponents, period. That is what the Me Too movement was, okay? And because I actually care about rape victims, I speak out against radicalized feminists. I speak out against radicalized movements. The only way we are going to kill radical feminism is every woman in this room needs to speak out against it regularly, okay? We have to destroy it, because what they'll say about men if they say anything about it is they'll Me Too them. They'll Me Too men for critiquing the Me Too movement. Seriously, I'm not kidding. We have to defend our boys. They're our husbands, they are our sons, and they are our fathers. That is what I would say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, Candace, God bless you and all of the team. I'm Bishop Leon Benjamin, and I'm also the city Richmond GOP chair for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
This was so timely, and you know, we talked when I saw you at the White House. This is what is needed for Richmond, because right now we have a divide. And we need to be able to take a movement like Blexit and other movements to say, we are one, we are talking as one voice, and we mean what we say, we will be free. And so my thing is what got me too, that you guys are not afraid to talk about God. You're not afraid to talk about Jesus. And so what I want to know is, how can we not be more, not ashamed of talking faith and politics together on the same platform? Please help us.
Yeah, hey, you gotta give it to my man. You gotta give it to him right away.
Okay, all right, thank you for that easy question. Look, about doing what you're doing, obviously, it's a learning process. Candace and I were together at dinner last night. We talked about the fact that we just have to be relentless in offering up the truth. And the truth of the matter is, there wouldn't be a nation without the church, because churches and pastors were in the forefront of the Revolutionary War. There wouldn't have been a civil rights movement without the church, because the church was in the forefront of that effort. And the fact of the matter is, there wouldn't be an America as we know it today, because we are all blessed because people who went before us have been praying and seeking God's face, and there's just no way in the world we can ever give that up. So I tell people this, and I'll stop before I preach, so you got me. I tell people, forget about thinking of it as politics and thinking of it as prophetic ministry. Was it politics when Moses went down and told Pharaoh, God said, let my people go? Was it politics when Nathan went to David and said, somebody stole one poor man's ewe lamb? And David said, who is this man? Let's kill this man. He said, you are the man. And was it politics when Elijah told Ahab and Jezebel that you are hurting the land of Israel and God's going to judge you for it? So as far as I'm concerned, I would not be fulfilling my prophetic responsibility if I didn't stand up and say what thus saith the Lord in the midst of a sick and dying world.
Equation that cheers for God, and we know that that is to be on the right. Guys, thank you so much for the questions, and thank you guys so much for the questions. Thank you guys for being here today. We're going to move to a 15-minute intermission, but first I just wanted to show you this video. I'm all about creating art. We've got to create art. We've got to get back into culture. That's why we start with that video that you saw. Like, we belong, conservatives belong in the cultural discussion. And to me, the journey of Black America has been so beautiful, and I believe the journey of Blexit in repairing all the harm the left has done between whites and blacks and Hispanics is going to bring this nation back together again. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and then enjoy your intermission.
Hey, you guys, go to Candace's stream. It's about to end right now. My battery's on 0. So go to Candace's stream. This will be a wrap for me. Right after this video, my battery's dead right now.
You may write me down in history with your little twisted lies. You may tar me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I rise. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatred. But just not life. I rise. Out of the husband's shame, I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain, I rise. A black ocean weeping and wild.